Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wellness with EAC. My name is Nicole Guanzura, and it is my distinct privilege to be your host. On the show, we talk a lot about career wellness, and we interweave a lot of our personal and professional journeys, sprinkle a little bit of our faith journeys in there. But at the end of the day, the goal is to speak about topics that are really close to you, topics that really help you navigate a healthier workplace and also a healthier home environment. So if you're not familiar with some of the topics we've been talking about, we've talked about everything from wellness and entrepreneurship. We've talked about career wellness 101 and transferable skills. And then we bring in guests that talk about a variety of topics as well. And if you are new to the podcast, I will assure you every single person that comes on the show and is a guest is someone who is vetted, someone I personally trust, someone who, if you are going to get off of this episode and go directly to interact with them and their content, they're going to be just as awesome as they were on the show. No performative behavior over here. And if you're returning, welcome back. You already know the drill around here. Love chatting with you. And I'm so excited that on this episode today, y'all, you're in for a treat. My guest is Lorraine Lee. And Lorraine, if you have not heard of her already, if you've not been on LinkedIn, let me put you on because she's absolutely awesome. She is a founding editor and has been for several companies, including one you know really well, LinkedIn. And she has been named a LinkedIn top voice. So, which is why I say, if you haven't heard of her on LinkedIn, you definitely have to check it out. And last but not least, she is a sought after speaker in the world of all things professional presence. And she's going to share a little bit more about her journey, her story. And the goal of this conversation is to humanize the experience behind all these amazing people you're seeing on the internet. So I'm so privileged to have Lorraine on the show today. Lorraine, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Nicole. Oh my gosh, I love that intro. I'm hyped up now.
Yes. Oh gosh, I appreciate it. It's so fun. And I'm always like everybody's very next or very best hype girl. I privilege myself in this. I'm really excited about the things that you're going to be talking about. I know you and I have been talking behind the scenes about some of the cool things you're doing, a little bit of your background. And for those even that are familiar with you or not yet, can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about you? Walk us back a little bit. What does your educational, professional background look like? Who is Lorraine?
Yeah, happy to. I studied journalism at Northwestern, and pretty early on, as much as I love journalism, I realized I don't actually want to go into traditional journalism, and I want to do a journalism adjacent role. And I sort of landed in all these content roles at tech companies, which I did not know at the time of graduation were a thing, right? But I feel so privileged and lucky that I did. So as you mentioned, I was a founding editor at numerous tech companies. So I started off at a startup in marketing and then moved to LinkedIn proper, where I was a founding editor for 6 years, an amazing experience. I even moved to Hong Kong for 1 year
Oh,
to
wow.
help launch that product. If any of your listeners are on LinkedIn often, you know that module in the top right with the stories. So I would, wake up in my day, I would write the stories, and then you all in the US would wake up and have all the up-to-date stories and the curated comments and all of that. So it was a really just exciting time to be there. And then after 6 years, I wanted to manage in an official capacity and
Hmm.
just try something new. Especially in tech, I think even 5 years is, you're a veteran and you've been there forever. So I was there for 6 years, and I joined Prezi, which is the presentation platform, and I built the team from scratch. So I was its first ever
Wow.
editor, which was really exciting, and got to take all my learnings from LinkedIn and apply them to my new role at Prezi. And it was while I was at Prezi that I came up with this personal goal for myself to
Mm.
become more comfortable presenting and public speaking. And it was just simply, a small goal, or a big goal rather, but kind of like a small thing I did on the side. I had a
Hmm.
mentor, Spencer, at the company who was willing to give me feedback, and he was a great speaker already. And so just slowly but surely, I practiced, I improved. This was the start of 2021, so a lot of virtual events still going on, right? And I got to a point where I became, pretty good at it, and I enjoyed it.
Hmm.
Even though I got nervous, I realized it was a really great challenge. And at the end of 2022, I got laid off.
Mm.
And so at that point, I had to decide, okay, do I want to apply for another job, or do I want to maybe build out this sort of side hustle as a speaker? And I also had become a LinkedIn learning instructor as well during that time,
Hmm.
build that out into my own business. And I decided to go with the latter. It was a really tough job market, and I had always people had been asking me, they see me post on LinkedIn, they're like, oh, are you going to go off on your own? And I always would say, no, I prefer corporate, it's more stable. But as you've seen, it's not so stable. So, so yeah, I ended up starting my own business. So, started last January, Rise Learning Solutions. So it's been a year and a half now, just crazy. Time flies. So I
Yeah.
continue to speak and train, as you mentioned in the intro. I do some consulting and coaching, and then I also teach through LinkedIn Learning and Stanford Continuing Studies. And as you mentioned, sort of my through line topic through all those things is helping professionals supercharge their professional presence, because I think it's a super important piece in this day and age to be able to advance in your career. And maybe I should clarify, when I say presence, I mean it in two senses of the word. So I think a lot of people, when they think of presence, they think of executive presence and, Nicole,
Hmm.
how I come across to you, right? But there's
Right.
this whole other side of presence that's not really discussed. And it's, where is your presence? Like where are you being seen? So on
Right.
sites like LinkedIn, in a video call, right? A video meeting, through email, through Slack, Teams, etc. And through all those virtual touch points we have in a day, we are leaving behind an impression. We are creating a reputation for ourselves. And
Hmm.
those pieces are really important to help us advance our career. One without the other only gets you so far. So
Right.
that's why I'm so passionate about talking about it. And I've just seen in my own career as well how meaningful that has been.
That is amazing. And thank you for walking us through that journey. First of all, my millennial heart gets excited when you talk about Prezi because I remember it being the latest, greatest thing after
Yeah. Yeah.
PowerPoint. And then I remember in college using Prezi. I'm like, this was the coolest innovation.
Yeah.
And the way things have just evolved since. But just to hear, right, about, you mentioned that these companies that you weren't as aware of, but all of a sudden now you've made that mark in history, right? In the history of that company, your presence was
Yeah.
felt. Your presence is still there. I had no
Yeah.
idea. I've always wondered who curates all of those topics on the side of my LinkedIn
Yeah.
newsfeed. And now you're telling me, you were some of the brains behind that. And it's so cool to see, right? And I love that um, just having this podcast to talk about what happens behind the scenes. I'm sure
Yeah.
some people think it's just like this magical thing, or someone who's not noticed it is now going
Yeah.
to take a closer look because there's a human behind that.
Yeah.
It had to be tested, it had to be launched. You got to travel through it. So I
Yeah.
really love the way you're pulling in on your experiences and just building on that. Because now, when you talk about professional presence, not only are you an embodiment of that, you've experienced that professionally and personally, which
Mhm.
is, I think, one of the greatest benefits in a society where there's so much inundation in terms of experts in certain areas or things like that. And you don't always know who to trust. You don't
Yeah.
always know, okay, so what does this look like for me? And in a market where it's really hard to get a job right now. It is no longer that, what was it, just right, coming right out of the pandemic. And
Yeah.
there was that hot second where offers were flying left,
Yeah.
right, and center. And
Yes.
I mean, the employee was in charge of that
Yeah.
experience and
Yeah.
then came on the other side of layoffs. And it's still a huge impact now. So I think that topic
Yeah.
of presence is something, professional presence specifically, where you're being seen, um, that makes an impact whether you're staying in the company or you're growing outside of the company. And
Exactly.
if you hear somebody or talk to somebody, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go Google them.
Yeah.
You're going to see what's there. Maybe you're interviewing them for something. You just want to see what are they about. There's that presence that's so important. And I love that
Yeah.
you even mentioned things like Slack. You don't really think about it because it's supposed to be a more informal form, but
Right.
there's an impression that comes out of that too.
Exactly. Yeah, all like really excellent points you make. I actually have a LinkedIn post coming about this in a few weeks, I think. But I just Googled myself the other day and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a Google Knowledge card now. Like, that's great. That so now people know, like Lorraine Cayley, like that is me. Like I am the first result who that pops up. And so yeah, being really
Wow.
intentional about it, because people are going to look you up and they do form impressions of you, like without being face to face. That's like the new way of working now, right? Like our
Yeah.
virtual presence is so key. So yeah, and to your point, yeah, Slack, platforms like that where you think it's just casual or just, oh, I'm just like using it to communicate with colleagues. Like no, like we have to be really intentional. There's just so much noise happening in this world, and it's
Yeah.
competitive, as you said. Like let's take advantage of all these moments and really take charge of our careers in that way.
Absolutely. And I'm excited about that post coming up because I didn't even know Google, Knowledge Card was a thing, but
Yeah,
it's so important because oftentimes when you look, then there's a sponsored post, then, there's that organic traffic that's coming. So despite where we're searching, I know depending on the generation, sometimes people are going to look for stuff on TikTok, look for wherever,
yeah,
but Google still remains predominantly the main
yeah,
search engine, source engine for content, for
yeah.
experts. So, congratulations. And I can't wait to read that. That's going to be such a good post.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you.
Of course, of course. So, there's a lot of cool things that you've experienced, some really great things that you're working on as time is flying now, a year and a half as a business owner, um, and just exploring what it looks like to work for yourself. What
Yeah.
is one thing that you are really, really proud of in this current season of life?
Oh gosh, there's so many things to be proud of. I think I'm just proud I made it through year one of starting my business. And
Yeah.
like last year was a difficult time, I think, to
Mm,
start a business. And I'm really proud this year, like we're in June right now. So last month, May was my best speaking month. It's a mix
amazing.
of AAPI opportunities, but also just general like opportunities, consulting, speaking just more generally. So I was just really proud of that. I think that, I've started to see some momentum from year
Mm-hmm.
one. Maybe, the economy, I don't know, is like bouncing back a little bit more, at least as it pertains to, hiring outside folks to help. So yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just proud I've made it this far. I'm proud that I'm continuing to grow and to learn. I just hired 3 interns through my university program, which it's always a lot of work to hire, but I'm just like thankful too that I feel like I'm in a place where, yeah, I can grow my business and still mentor. Like that's something that's super important to me. So I
Mm.
know I just named a few things, but yeah,
Yeah.
essentially I made it through year one and I'm going strong in year two.
Yes, and congratulations on that. It's something that year one, you're learning a lot.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started EAC, and EAC turns 3 next month, which is wild to think about.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And I remember year one was a hot mess express. It was just a lot of trying to figure things out because just because you're an expert at your topic and the experience you've had, it doesn't automatically make you an expert business owner.
Oh my gosh, it's a completely different skill set. Yeah.
Right? Right. So the first year is a lot of that. And even for me, it was figuring out who the right client is, who exactly I want to be working with. And
Yeah.
there's all of these things. One of the things I know is important and is helpful, but still one of my least favorite things was creating client avatars and, really trying to understand the
Yeah.
who, the why, and do you narrow down to one niche or do you do multiple?
Yeah.
How is it going to go? And you're
Yeah.
experimenting, but
Yeah.
the gas bill doesn't get paid in experiments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
mortgage or rent doesn't get paid in
Yeah.
experiments.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Everything else. And I'm grateful to have a husband and partner who is, he's just keeping up with my shenanigans.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
So it's been helpful in savings and things like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's so I back to that thing that you're proud of. It is so important to be now in the second year, and then also being real about, okay, I've been in this game
Yeah.
for a little bit now. I've kind of gotten my feet steady, and
Mhm.
it was last month that was my best month yet. It wasn't
Okay. Yeah.
overnight.
Right,
It
right.
wasn't, and even if you're talking about if it's coming from a lot of like AAPI
Yeah.
Heritage Month, but for folks to even think of you, to reach out to
Oh,
you for
yeah.
opportunities, that means that professional presence you have been establishing all this while. And then they're
Yeah.
seeing from that, which means they're probably even thinking about you for next year because the presence you have now
Mhm.
and what you're establishing now is making room for you on the other side.
Yeah.
And, I hope that even what you accomplished in May was
Mhm.
just a snippet of what next May is going to be looking like.
Yeah.
May it be, 5x, 10x of what you've
Yeah.
experienced now.
My
But
gosh, 10x. Yeah.
yeah, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. And so, part of this journey too, there are things that we learn and lessons that we sometimes stumble through, sometimes full face on into the mud. And some things that you're like, okay, you know what? I actually did that pretty well. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But can you share an example of something that you would do differently, either in your just general professional, working professional journey to date, or,
Yeah.
as a business owner to date? What is that one thing that you're thinking, you know what? That was an opportunity to do something different, and
Yeah.
this is how I'm shifting things.
Yeah, I think maybe I can give one for each. So, in terms of my career, I would
Mm-hmm.
say one thing I wish I had done earlier was to advocate for myself. And, I'm talking about being intentional about your career, right? Really being
Yeah.
intentional about it and not feeling like, oh, okay, I'm going to work really hard and do good work. And yeah, of course, naturally, I'm going to get the promotion through that. But instead, like, oh
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I have to actually promote my work and I have to be seen outside of my immediate team
Yeah.
and I have to let my manager know that it's something that I even want, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just really being my own best advocate. Like I talk about this all the time in my different sessions, but that's so important and we don't get taught that in school.
Yeah.
And you don't really get taught that in the workplace until maybe it's too late or like maybe you have a
Mm-hmm.
great manager there, right? But yeah, it often comes, I think, later than it should in our career. So that's probably one thing, or definitely one thing that I would have done differently, and I think could have maybe, I'm thankful where I ended up now, but maybe could have taken my career in a different direction. And then entrepreneur wise,
Mm-hmm.
it's still early. Like thankfully, I haven't made any big mistakes. At least I don't think they've been. But one thing I would say that maybe I can just flip it on its head, like something I've done well that I think is a good approach. And I'd be curious, Nicole, if you've done something similar. But
Yeah.
I've always been very, conscientious to not spend outside my means. Like it can be very
Mm.
easy to spend a lot of money on something that you think will be like the game changer, but just
Yeah.
knowing that if it was so easy, um, everyone would be doing it, right? I got
Of
very
course.
lured in when I first started. I started getting all these Instagram ads of like, oh, the coach that will help you make six figures in 1 month and da da da. I'm like, I was so tempted. My husband was like, wait, like, if it was, these people are really good at marketing, like hold your
Right.
horses. So I think I've been very, I try to not outspend like what I'm making and just be really, fiscally responsible, I guess you would say.
Mm.
So that's just something that came to mind for me. But yeah, I'd be curious, like for
Yeah.
you, what if any of that resonates, or if you've done something
Yeah.
similar.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first, I'm glad you addressed from the workplace perspective that advocating for yourself in and out, making it known. It's not simply because you have an expectation of being promoted does not mean it'll come into fruition or
Yeah,
reality.
yeah,
You have to be able to let your manager know it inside of the performance reviews, but
mhm,
outside of that as well.
yeah,
Tracking your wins, big wins, little wins. I know people
yeah,
would get into the habit of just keeping a
A
little
log, a
folder,
journal.
right? A
Yeah.
little log,
Yeah.
something, whether you're putting it in your notes tab or in your email and just slide a really good email or
Yes.
kudos
Yeah.
or something, because
Yeah.
those are the things that you can show now. Okay, this is what's
Yeah.
been going really well. And this is
Mhm.
where I've tried this new thing that
Yeah.
works towards this promotion. So I'm really glad you brought that up because that is so important. And for someone like me working oftentimes with college students and early career professionals, those conversations, that's a good time to be having them before they
Yeah.
go into their
Yes. Exactly.
first,
Yeah.
second, and whatever, there's no linear career anymore anyway.
Yeah. Right.
Um, and then the fiscal responsibility part, I think that is something that is so, so important. And I made the mistake of investing in one of those coaches and was expecting it to, to be the
Yeah.
magic
Sure.
pill or magic
Sure. Sure. Sure.
solution.
Yeah.
But I learned very quickly, one, even the audience I was trying to build for was not even my right client base,
Yeah.
and things like that. So that was a
Yeah.
costly mistake that I ended up having to
Yeah.
pay for.
Yeah.
But from that, it has made me hyper conscious of every single dollar, every
Yeah.
single investment that
Yeah.
goes, whether it's a course, it could be a $60 course. I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
I
No,
need to
same.
look at
Yeah.
all those $60 because I'm like,
Yeah.
$60, that mostly pays for most of my business insurance every month. So,
Yes.
do I want to
Yeah.
do that or do I want to do this?
Sure.
Or do I want to spend this and purchase a product or that $60
Yeah.
when this mic was on sale could have bought it full price, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So it's made me very hyper conscientious and hyper aware
Yeah.
of every single dollar I'm spending, and also having a community of friends. I have a friend
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
literally threatened me and said, if you buy one more course and you stop recognizing the talent you have, I'm
Yeah.
coming for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was good to have friends like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and so anytime I start to think about that Insta ad gets me or on
Mm,
LinkedIn or
yeah.
whatever else,
Yeah.
I literally think of her. She is the voice in my head
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
telling me, stop it, don't do it, go finish the module on the one you already have. Go, go.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like the point your friend is making is like we have to take action, right? Like
Yes.
I'm more introverted, like I like to be thoughtful and like do all my research and da da da, but and I
Yeah.
did at the start of my business, but then I realized too, I was like after a certain point, you just gotta do it and just and start it and get data and feedback and see what's working and what's not. So, yeah, good friend of yours.
Yes, yes. Oh gosh, she's a great one. So yes, I've definitely resonated that. I had to, step in some mud first, but on
Sure,
the
yeah.
other side of it,
Yeah.
everything, I mean, fully accounted for, which
Yeah.
is good and doing
Nice.
now
Yeah.
versus finding out later.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. And
Of
as I'm
course.
thinking, true to the nature of this podcast, what does wellness mean to you?
Wellness is something that I am trying to really focus on more this
Mm,
year. I think to me, wellness means being healthy,
mm,
having a balance or maybe a good integration of work and personal life. I think for me, one thing I'm working on is I don't exude stress externally. I'm a very calm person externally, but I think that also means I hold in stress,
mm.
even if it's good stress. Like,
Yeah,
starting a business is stressful.
yeah,
But I'm like, oh, there's like so many things going on. Oh, I gotta like work the weekend because I have to catch up. It's great. I have work, but that's not to me like that's not sustainable. I don't think that's
right.
healthy. So I think yeah, wellness is trying to figure out a healthy balance where I can have free time and enjoy the weekends and also still achieve the goals I have for the business. And then also just
Mm.
my physical being that I'm healthy and and yeah, healthy to just do this long term, right?
Right, right. And that's so important when you're thinking about the long term, and the body keeps score, whether you
Yeah.
want to acknowledge it or not,
Yeah.
the body's keeping score. And I'm very much even. despite how extroverted and I seem and am
Yeah.
naturally, I am someone who is always, almost always going to be at this level of excitement and enthusiasm and hype,
Yeah.
and I'm going to try to
Yeah.
see the positive in
Yeah.
everything. But
Yeah.
my body's also like, hey, slow
Yeah.
down for a second. Hey, we
Yeah.
just need to take a breath. And also just trying to manage the parts around being mom and business
Yeah.
owner and
Yes.
wife and,
Yeah.
just sister, friend, all the
Yeah.
things,
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
body's keeping score of how you're doing things. And it's also helping me to implement routines. I know that in the morning, I
Yeah.
need to have my quiet time. I need to read my Bible. I need to journal. I need to
Yeah.
do the things that are going to set my mind correctly. And I now have in my calendar, make dinner so that I get off my
Good.
computer
Yeah.
and go do
Hey, I mean,
that.
whatever works.
Otherwise,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Otherwise, you just stay on your computer forever.
So easy. Yeah. It's so easy to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm also glad you talked about that and that you have interns that can also help you
Yeah.
and
And
learn
VAs,
from you.
I'm building the team. Yeah. So delegate, delegate. It shouldn't all be on you.
Honestly, yes, I need to learn a little bit more about that and think about, just bringing on some interns as well soon.
Yeah.
Lorraine, this has been so awesome. There's so much we could continue to talk about, and I'm sure in a couple of months we're going to have to do a part two because there's some cool things that are coming up with you,
Yes.
and
Happy
that,
to. Yeah.
oh my gosh, I would love that. We'll bookmark that. But in the meantime, how can people get in touch with you? I hyped you all the way up about being on LinkedIn. You're a top
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah.
Um, the people are going to want to know.
Yeah,
How do
yeah,
they
of
connect?
course. So there's a few ways that you can get in touch. So obviously LinkedIn, you can find me at Lorraine K. Lee. That's also my LinkedIn handle. So I encourage you to connect with me, follow me there. I've 15 LinkedIn learning courses out. 14 of them are free, do not require a premium account. So lorraineklee.com/LinkedIn learning. You can find all of those there. I have a weekly newsletter called Career Bites, so bite-sized tips to supercharge your career in 3 minutes or less. So lorrainekaylee.com/subscribe. And then if you want to get in touch for speaking opportunities, collaboration opportunities, consulting, coaching, and whatnot, contact at lorrainekaylee.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And y'all, don't forget the K in the middle. It's Lorraine K. Lee.
Yes.
And I am going to link all of the resources on the show notes, on our blog, on our website, on LinkedIn,
Yes. Thank you.
as this episode is going live, so that you can keep in touch with Lorraine. You want to be following her, interacting with her content. As she already said, there's some really good stuff coming out in a couple of weeks, but there's a lot of stuff you can be catching up on in the meantime. So, Lorraine, I appreciate you. It has been an absolute joy having you. Thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Wellness with EAC. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share them in the comments below. Please make sure to like and subscribe and share this episode with a friend. And if you are listening to us on YouTube Music or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, honestly, and you want to see Lorraine and I face to face, head on over to Wellness with EAC on YouTube and you can see us. This is a video podcast as well, so you can interact with the faces behind, download some freebies while you're at it from myself and Lorraine. She's given out some really good stuff from her website. And until next Wednesday, take care and be well, everyone.